Hello and welcome back to the channel. On today's video, we are going to be tuning this customer's Lift 29.5 80 pounder. This is a good customer of mine from back when I lived down in Texas who shipped this up here. We're going to be putting on a new set of strings and cables and retuning this bow for him. So we'll go through that whole process in this video. We're also going to be live on the TikTok. So if you guys do want to see other content like this or you want to watch it live, follow me on TikTok and Instagram. Both of those will be linked down below. They're both Bergy Bowsmith. And then you guys can follow along the next time that we tune a different bow. So you can ask questions live. But without further ado, we're going to jump right into restringing this bow and we'll go from there. All right, now that we got the strings done, I'm going to measure from the center of this axle to the center of the string, and I'm going to set this knock in the dead center of the bow and then just an 1/8 knock high. So how I like to do it, since this customer shoots a hook style release, I like to take a piece of D-loop. We're going to burn the one end. I always do it with pliers because I feel like I get a nice ball on it. So we'll burn this down. Make her nice and flat. I always make the burnt end of the knot face the side of the bow that the shooter is going to be on the top. So in this instance, that's on my side of the bow. So we're going to set that knock or that D-loop on there. This just gives it something to kind of push up against. All right, right there is exactly an 1/8 knock high. So now I'm going to take my Sharpie. We're going to mark this on the loop. I'm going to move it. I'm going to take some of this BCY 3D. We're going to tie our top knock set. I'm going to go from the top of the silver Sharpie mark. We're going to tighten down. The first tie, I do 3 top, 3 bottom with double loops. And then on the last one, I'm just going to go in between the second and third wraps, cinch that down, and then do it again right over the top. And then burn my tag ends. Now when I do my bottom knock set, I run this knock tight to this previously tied knock set. And then with my VCY 3D, I leave about a 16th, like a weak 16th, between the knock and the bottom knock set. The reason I do this instead of running it tighter than that is because if this customer wants to change to lighted knocks, or if they change to a 5mm, or they change to just different knocks in general, this gives it just enough play that it still has room for a different size knock without knock pinch. A lot of people will run it real tight up against it. The top knock set, in my opinion, is my most important knock set, and that's the one that I want to be set perfect every single time. The bottom knock set, you can have a little bit of play in it. All it's going to do is change how wide your D loop is. So I like to run it like a weak 16th off. Or a strong 32nd, if you guys prefer that terminology. And then we're going to do the same thing. 3 wraps top, 3 wraps bottom, double looping. Now on my personal bow, I do a single loop when I tie my knock set so I can spin it up and down the serving. The double, you can still spin up and down the serving. It's just a little bit more difficult and it's a little bit more secure. But since I have the shop here, I can cut mine off, reserve, and do whatever I need to if I end up needing to. A lot of my customers don't. So I want to make sure that these stay nice and solid and are a little difficult to move. Because 9 times out of 10, they won't have to move them. So there's our 3 on the top and 3 on the bottom. Now we're going to split the second and third wrap. And then we're going to do it again with a double loop. And cinch that down. And burn our tag ends. So that's how I tie my knock sets. And then we'll just tie this D-loop in. I like to run it on number 23 material. I like to run it pretty parallel or pretty perpendicular here. And then I'm gonna grab my pliers, grab a hold, put the tag end in my mouth. Cut it off. Fray it up. This is a trick that a buddy of mine named Sam taught me to get the same length loop every single time. Now I'm going to burn it down, flatten her out. Take this lighter, just burn up any loose ends. And then in order to keep this from pulling your serving, you just kind of work these pliers in until your knot is set. So we're just going to continue to work these. Now that my knot is set, I'm just going to lightly give it a little bit of pressure. And then now we'll cinch her down nice and tight, and then you have a consistent D-loop length every single time. So that's that part of the process. Now we'll set the rest at 13/16. All right, so we checked the cam timing. Everything was good there after a little adjustment. And we took the first shot through paper, which was this shot through paper, which it's mirrored for you guys, but that's a knock right tear. But if we look at the bow, the top cam did have some cam lean when we initially checked cam lean. So I'm going to swap the top hat kit, and we should be able to clean up that knock right tear and keep everything running dead center down the bow. So we're going to do that right now, and I'll film that so you guys can see it. All right, so we went from that heavy knock right to just barely knock right. So we'll tune that out real quick. I'll show you guys how I do that. Okay, so since that tear is pretty close to a bullet hole, what we're going to do now is I am going to just slightly rotate the knock to see if I can clean up that tear. I'm going to shoot it a couple times by rotating the knock, and if I can get a clean tear by rotating the knock, then we'll leave it there. If not, then we'll make very, very, very small adjustment to the rest. I don't want to take it out of center. So we'll see if we can clean it up with the knock tune. So that's what we're going to do now. I'm going to shoot it a couple times and I'll show you guys the tears. All right, so we rotated the knock. We tried a couple different arrows. We're still getting a knock right tear. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the top hats back into the position that they were in, and I'm going to flip the bottom ones because the bottom top hats have a bigger gap in it. So we're going to flip that, and we're going to shoot it again and see what happens so that we can keep everything running right down the middle. Okay. So we put different top hats in here. So I'm going to flip these to move this cam back to the left, which would not fix a knock right tear. It's going to make it worse. But since the difference in the bottom top hats is bigger, is a greater difference, by flipping the bottom ones, I should still be able to fix that cam lean and get the tear that we want while running it down center. So, and I'll show you guys what it looks like running down center once we do. All right, so we swapped the top hats around and then flipped the bottom ones. And now we have a very, very, very manageable tear. It's just very ever so slightly knock right. We'll just make a couple clicks on the rest and that'll still keep it at 13/16 in spec. And we got a bullet hole. All right, so we made an adjustment to the rest. We moved it 2 clicks to the left because it was just to the right of 13/16. And we got a bullet hole. Now, I get this question a lot. How can I tune bows for customers when they're not the ones shooting it? And in my mind, a bow is a machine. And a machine is designed to shoot in one location. So if I take that bow out of tune or its perfect location to fix poor form, then the bow isn't technically shooting as efficiently and as forgiving as it possibly can. So what I'm doing is I'm just making sure that the cam lean is good, everything's running down the center, and tuning it into a spot where everything is running dead center of the bow, where it's going to be the most forgiving for the customer. And then if the customer doesn't get a perfect tear, then I can work with the customer on their form. All right, so just a little recap before we tie this peep in of what we've done so far. We put new strings on, we set the center shot perfectly center, 1/8 inch knock high. Center shot left to right is 13/16 on the dot. We shot it through paper, had a knock right tear. So what I did is I swapped the top hats. Tear was still there, just barely still there. So instead of taking the rest out of center, we flipped the top hats to move it back to give it a bigger knock right tear. And then swapped the top hats on the bottom, the left one to the right and the right one to the left because of the big separation. And that would move the cam over. It also kept the cam lean good. So there's good cam lean across this bow. And everything is sitting dead nuts center. So now we're going to mark where the peep needs to go, and we're going to tie that in and then tie the Bowmar nose button in for him. So I'll kind of walk you guys through how I do that. So we have some measurements. 5 3/4 is what his peep is. So we're going to take my Sharpie. I'm going to measure 5 3/4 inches from the top of D loop. This D loop is a little bit longer, so I'm going to go I'm going to shade it just under 5 3/4. And I'm going to mark that. We're going to put a raptor peep in there. So I'm going to move this string splitter to here. Take the tension off the string. We'll separate this. I always try to get this as close to perfect the first time as possible, because the more times you start moving this up and down this string, the more variation you're going to have in how tight this kind of winds in there. So we're going to move it, add tension back to the string, and I'm going to recheck this measurement. Now if the peep doesn't come back straight, that's okay. We'll fix that after it's tied in. But we are just a shade under 5 3/4. So what I do for all my customers is I mark this on both sides on the front edge of the peep with a silver Sharpie. You're not really going to see it, but now they know if that peep slides in transit back to them so that they can slide it back. It shouldn't slide, but stranger things have happened. I'm going to take some D-loop or some BCY 3D. I'm going to show you guys how I tie a peep. It's a pretty common way, but I do it a little bit different. The reason I do it this way is because the knots are going to pull into the center and keep this peep locked down. I have a video on my channel of me tying a peep, but we'll go over it in this video as well. So I wrap 3 times. I take the tag end and I'm going to go on the bottom. I'm going to loop it through and then pull it up into the groove. And I'm going to take the top one, loop it over, go from the bottom and pull it into this groove. The other nice thing about marking this peep with the Sharpie is now I know if I slid that peep at all while setting these. Now I'm just going to take them, pull them a little tight. And with a Hamskea Raptor peep, I always wrap 7 times top and bottom. So we're going to wrap 7 times. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And now as far as like performance of this peep, nothing's going to change, but I always like to evenly space this so that it looks good. Now that everything's evenly spaced, I'm going to wrap around the bottom. I'm going to go 6 times. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we're going to do 6 back serves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Lay the tag end over, tuck it in, and unwrap to do your back serve. Grab your tag end, and then I set my thumb on here, and we're going to pull this nice and tight. And we're going to do the same thing on the top. I always do the bottom first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. On the 7th one, I'm going to kind of pull her tight, evenly space these out so that it looks nice. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to pull it nice and tight. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wrap the tag end and back serve. Take our tag end, line our thumb up, pull her nice and tight, and burn these tag ends. Now, you can see this peep is crooked, but the D-loop is also crooked. So we're just going to straighten that out. I'm going to go from the top because the top is the closest to the peep, so that's going to give you a big adjustment. So we'll just straighten this back out. Just a half twist will do. Oh, wrong way. half twist back the other way. Get this peep nice and lined up. Add the tension, make sure everything's still in its track. So now we're on the other side, so now I'm going to go to the bottom and that'll do a smaller adjustment. Now you can see everything's in a straight line. So now that everything's in a straight line, we're going to cut this Bowmar nose button off and we'll put that on last, but I'm going to put it in the drawboard, make sure the peep's coming back straight. If it's not, we'll make a little tweak to the D-loop here, and then this peep will be set. And we're good to go on this bow until his sight comes in, and then we'll set the axes on his sight and we'll be good to go. All right, everybody, so we tied in the peep. I tied in the nose button. I didn't film that. It was pretty simple. It was just the same way that I kind of tie these knock sets. And this bow is tuned, shooting perfect bullets. All we are waiting on now is his new HHA Tetra Max Rise X3. We'll set the axes on that, and this will get shipped back to the customer. If you guys like videos like this and you want me to keep doing videos like this, go ahead, follow the channel. Let me know in the comment section down below, and we'll continue these. If you guys have any other questions, while I make these videos, I am live on Instagram and or TikTok. So you guys can follow me on Instagram at Bergy Bowsmith or on TikTok at Bergy Bowsmith. And get more content and be able to ask questions live while I'm doing this. I also go into a little bit more in depth into why I do the certain things I'm doing, like when I swapped those top hats to keep everything in line. But that's going to be it for this video, other than setting the sight when the sight gets here. But that's pretty basic and kind of boring, so I probably won't bore you guys with that kind of content. If you guys like this, like I said, smash a like. Let me know in the comment section down below. And I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.